Welcome to The Explainer. We are jumping right in today. Because, well, if you're leading a team or running an operation, you are very likely dealing with a silent bleed. And I'm talking about a big one. Small and mid-sized businesses, they lose an estimated 20 to 30% of their productivity to completely preventable inefficiencies. 20 to 30%. That's a huge chunk. And I'm not just talking about massive company-wide systemic breakdowns here. Think about the everyday stuff, like your team consistently misrouting a standard invoice, or maybe an experienced, highly trained technician forgetting a basic routine calibration step just because they got distracted for like 3 seconds. It is incredibly frustrating, right? But here's the thing, it's not because your employees are lazy or unmotivated. Not at all. Capable, smart people make predictable, recurring mistakes all the time, literally every day. So today, in this explainer, we're going to look at exactly why that happens, and, much more importantly, how you can permanently stop it by completely redesigning the environment where those decisions are actually made. All right, so here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the inevitable nature of human error. Then we'll get into the actual science of error elimination. After that, we'll unpack 4 specific structural strategies you can use to mistake-proof your workflows. We'll bring it all to life with a real-world restaurant case study, and then finally wrap up with what we call the architect mindset. Sounds good? Let's get started.
Section 1. The inevitable error, the hook and the problem.
So, let's talk about the incredibly frustrating reality of daily operations. I mean, you hire good people, right? You train them up, you write out all these super detailed policies, and yet a shipment still goes out incorrectly. An invoice gets approved with an absolutely obvious error on it. Somebody misses a critical step on a task they do every single day, and it happens month after month. Now, our instinctive reaction, as leaders, as managers, is to just assume it's a people problem. We think, if they just paid more attention, this wouldn't happen. But the truth? These are almost always system problems that are just quietly masquerading as human errors. So when an error happens, we actually need to shift our mindset. We need to think like a detective. A good detective doesn't just ask who committed the act, they reconstruct the whole scene. They look at the environment to understand the exact sequence of choices that led there. They ask, why would you do that? And not as an accusation, but as an actual investigation. Like, what information did the employee see first? What made the wrong action feel easier or more intuitive than the right one in that exact split second?
Okay, let's dive into this foundational insight of behavioral systems design. Look at this quote. Good people make mistakes when the cockpit is poorly designed. Fix the cockpit and you rarely need to fix the people. I absolutely love that because it hits the nail on the head. When doing the wrong thing is easy and doing the right thing takes effort, your system is literally inviting the error. To really get why this happens, we have to look at how the human brain processes information. Behavioral scientists break this down into 2 systems, System 1 and System 2 thinking. System 1, that's our autopilot. It's fast, automatic, highly intuitive, and it is constantly seeking the path of least resistance. System 2, on the other hand, is slow, deliberate, and highly analytical. Now, because your employees are busy and moving fast all day, their brains are almost exclusively running on that System 1 autopilot. So if your physical workspace or your digital interface tricks that autopilot, boom, you lose time and you lose money.
Moving right along to Section 2, the science of error elimination, the investigation.
All right, so we have to fundamentally reframe how we view these organizational failures. We simply can't just rely on humans being vigilant 100% of the time. It's impossible. We actually have to design for human fallibility. To picture this, let's look at James Reason's famous Swiss cheese model. Think of your business processes as layers of defense, literally like slices of Swiss cheese stacked up. In a well-designed system, small human mistakes are definitely going to happen. That's a given, but they get caught by the safeguards embedded in the next layer. Disasters or catastrophes, they only occur when the holes in those cheese slices align perfectly. Think about it. An employee is exhausted. Okay, that's one hole. The software they're using doesn't flag a critical typo. That's hole number 2. Then, a manager gets distracted by an urgent phone call and just blindly approves the document without double-checking. Boom, the 3rd hole. And suddenly, a client is overcharged by $10,000. No way, right? Our job is to proactively build structures that intercept those normal human slips before the holes can align and cause real damage.
And this brilliantly illustrates the concept of affordances by Donald Norman. Basically, the physical design of an object or an interface inherently invites a specific human action. Think about a door. A door with a flat push plate affords pushing. A door with a handle affords pulling, right? We have all done this, confidently striding up to a glass door with a huge vertical pull handle, grabbing it, yanking it, and nearly dislocating a shoulder because, oops, it was actually a push door. That is famously known in design circles as a Norman door. And you didn't do it because you were careless. You did it because the design lied to your autopilot. That's what we call a design-induced error. Bad design induces errors because our fast-thinking, System 1 brains just naturally react to the visual cues right in front of us.
All right, Section 3, the 4 structural strategies. Let's look at the tools.
So, how do we actually fix this bad design? Well, here are the practical choice architecture tools that smart leaders use to mistake-proof their operations. There are 4 distinct approaches to basically taking the heavy cognitive burden off your exhausted employees and putting it onto the system itself. First, we have forcing functions. Second, procedural forcing functions. Third is error-tolerant design. This is where you build in forgiveness so mistakes are just absorbed without harm. Think of the undo button on your computer keyboard. A total lifesaver, right? And fourth, intuitive design, where the environment just naturally guides you to the absolute correct choice. Let's compare a couple of these directly so you can really see the difference.
Take forcing functions, for example, over on the left. This is about making a mistake literally, physically impossible. Think of automotive fueling systems at the gas station. A diesel fuel nozzle is purposely designed to be too large to fit into the tank of a standard unleaded gasoline car. You couldn't make the mistake even if you tried. The error physically cannot occur. Now, sometimes you just can't make an error physically impossible, right? So looking at the right side, that's when you turn to procedural forcing functions to implement an engineered pause. Think of surgical checklists in a hospital. Before a single incision is made, the entire operating room must completely stop, verify the patient's name out loud, and confirm the specific procedure. It forcefully interrupts that fast System 1 autopilot and forces the slow, deliberate, analytical brain to engage. The pause is engineered right into the workflow.
Strategy number 3 is error-tolerant design. This approach is really all about accepting broad human behaviors as they are. Instead of forcing your users to do something precisely one right way, the system itself absorbs the complexity so that multiple variations work perfectly. Think about reversible USB-C connectors or contactless tap-to-pay at the grocery store. You don't have to carefully align the plug anymore or swipe a card at the exact right speed. By eliminating those strict orientation requirements, almost any natural, kind of messy human interaction successfully completes the task. And the 4th strategy is intuitive design. This just means making the correct action unmistakably obvious. Consider the Tokyo Metro ticket gates. They feature these wide, brightly illuminated slots with glowing arrows. The raised guide rails physically capture the ticket, so commuters don't even have to break their stride. Or just think back to our door push plate example. These are strong visual affordances that guide user behavior perfectly and immediately, completely without the need for written instructions, complex analysis, or relying on memory.
Okay, let's jump to Section 4, the dishwasher case study, the proof.
Let's see how all of this builds out in the real world. This is a perfect example of a design-induced error happening in a high-pressure business environment. I want you to set the scene in your mind, okay? It's a Friday night dinner rush at a packed restaurant. Tickets are printing relentlessly, waitstaff are practically running around, and the commercial dishwasher, which is absolutely the beating heart of any kitchen, suddenly sounds a low detergent alarm. A frantic, well-meaning shift manager sprints into the dim utility closet. On the shelf, there are 3 identical, 3-gallon, deep industrial blue chemical jugs. One is detergent, one is sanitizer, one is rinse aid. But they all have the exact same universal twist-off caps and tiny, hard-to-read text on the labels. The manager grabs a jug, twists on the connector, and fires the machine back up.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is what happens next. Cut to an hour later. The glasses smell intensely like chlorine, and the plates are covered in this gross, cloudy residue. Yikes! The manager accidentally swapped an empty jug of detergent for a fresh jug of sanitizer. So the real question here is, why? Why would a smart, experienced employee make this kind of massive error? Well, it comes down to a behavioral concept called substitution. Under the intense time pressure of a dinner rush, the manager's brain swapped out a hard question, is this the exact correct chemical if I read the fine print, for a much, much easier question, does this generally look like the right jug? The environment allowed a slip error to happen. It was a complete and utter design trap.
So, what's the structural solution here? Do we pull the manager aside and yell at them? No way. We change the environment. Step 1, we use a forcing function. We install mutually incompatible keyed connectors. The detergent gets a round connector, the rinse aid gets an oval one, and the sanitizer gets a rectangle. Now the wrong jug physically cannot fit into the wrong line. Problem solved. Step 2, intuitive design. We apply color-coded sleeves to the tubing, say green for detergent, red for sanitizer, and we even paint the shelves to match. The absolute brilliance of this structural solution is that it requires literally zero extra training, zero extra willpower from the employee. The environment itself does all the heavy lifting. It instantly communicates how the system works and completely bypasses the need for perfect human memory when under pressure.
Which brings us to our final section, Section 5, the architect mindset, conclusion and contact.
Look, you have to stop reacting to mistakes after the fact and start designing systems that actually anticipate them. So the crucial point is right here on the screen. Good systems assume attention will lapse and design around that reality. Let that sink in for a second. You are no longer just a detective figuring out what went wrong. You are an architect actively shaping the conditions under which decisions occur. When you make the safest, most correct action the absolute easiest action to take, your performance is going to improve automatically. The people don't change, the system does. It's a real game changer.
If you want to dive deeper into choice architecture and finally stop the silent bleed of inefficiency in your own operations, you should absolutely reach out to the author of these concepts, Dr. Joseph Caccitolo. You can email him at joe@caccitolo.com or find him on LinkedIn. But as you go back to your own teams today, I want to leave you with one final, thought-provoking question to chew on. What predictable mistake is your system quietly inviting today? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and hey, happy architecting!